Hello everybody. Today, Stephanie, Havana, Andrea, and myself will be talking about the price elasticity of legal cannabis in California. We will start off by presenting the background on the California market, followed by Prop 64, the different types of cannabis, tax rates, tax revenues, cannabis supply and demand in California, the overview of the black market problem, the solutions, why you should care, and then finally, the key takeaways.
On November 6, 2016, voters in California passed Proposition 64. People were very excited about this initiative, which legalized recreational cannabis in the state and provided a broad framework from which cannabis businesses would be licensed, taxed, and regulated. Since the adoption, the legal cannabis market in California has grown steadily and currently supports over $2.1 billion in legal sales. While these represent positive signs that the legal cannabis has created an emerging industry in California with the potential to generate significant employment opportunities and revenue to the state, comparisons with other states indicate that California's legal cannabis market continues to underperform by a wide margin. So what is the issue with Proposition 64? The implementation of Proposition 64 has seen inconsistencies between different jurisdictions. These inconsistencies range from land use regulations to tax rate and licensing procedures. So while some jurisdictions have proactively sought to attract and develop local cannabis businesses, others have taken steps to block cannabis businesses from opening. Because retail cannabis licensing and sales still fall short of potential consumer demand, the illicit cannabis market continues to meet a large majority of this demand. Part of this stems from California's precarious position of having the world's largest cannabis market burdened by high tax rates and regulatory cost policies that make it more difficult than average to open a legal cannabis store in California, and easier than average to operate an illegal one.
I will be going over the 3 different types of cannabis. First, we have indica, which is a strain of cannabis that provides more physical relaxation and also stimulates sleepiness. For medicinal purposes, it is mainly used to treat people who suffer from anxiety, insomnia, and chronic pain. Second, we have sativa, and that's a strain of cannabis that is used to stimulate appetite and increase alertness. Medical patients seeking sativa usually suffer from eating disorders, migraines, and depression. Lastly is hybrid, and yes, you guessed it, it is a combination of the 2 strains, and according to the industry report, it is actually the most popular cannabis purchased. Probably because it gives you a little bit of both, relaxing from the indica and uplifting from the sativa. Displayed here are the average prices of 1/8 of an ounce medium grade cannabis for both markets. To clarify, 1/8 of an ounce is 3.5 grams and is the most common weight to purchase. As you can see, California has the highest prices within these 3 states who have all legalized the recreational use of marijuana. It is also clear that California's legal price of $41.10 in a dispensary has the largest gap between purchasing through the black market at $35, which you can probably even negotiate down. We as a group have established that the price difference has caused a difference in consumers being elastic or inelastic between the 2 markets. As for the black market consumers, they would fall into the elastic category because if they are given a price they do not like, they can easily find another black market cannabis dealer who will name a better price or give a little extra cannabis too. On the contrary, the consumers who are inelastic are the ones who pay a little more already at legal dispensaries. Dispensaries' cannabis prices are pretty much in the same ballpark and reach the same type of consumer who knows the prices are higher than the black market, but that's okay. They know what they're getting and they understand the price for their cannabis purchases, keeping them inelastic if prices do change slightly.
As discussed before, California has some of the highest tax rates for marijuana compared to other markets. When looking at the tax rates, you have to see the different types. So first, they're put an excise tax. So for cannabis, there's a standard 15% rate specified in the approval of Proposition 64. So this applies to all taxable retail cannabis transactions based on the average market price. From there, you add on a sales tax, which varies from jurisdiction. The standard allocation for sales tax tax begins with a statewide base rate of 7.25, and then from there, they'll add on percentages depending on the county. So for instance, the highest sales tax rates in California are 10.25 and 10.5%, which occurs in portions of Los Angeles County. Then from there, you would add on a cultivation tax, which is levied on harvested cannabis that enters the commercial market. The current rates are based on weight and will range from $1.35 to $9.65 per ounce, and depends on what kind of cannabis you're harvesting. Altogether, you can come up to a tax rate of 40.3%, and this high tax rate is then given to the consumer and is translated in high prices.
In addition to Andrea's coverage on the taxes of legal marijuana, here's a graph from the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. It shows how much of each tax has been received since 2018 until the second quarter of 2020. Even though California has not hit their goals, you can see that as a state, its cannabis tax revenues are steadily increasing.
I'm gonna talk about the cannabis supply and demand in California nowadays. So in California, the problem stems from a mix of high taxes and a limited number of legal dispensaries. The state imposed a 15% excise tax on all cannabis sale in addition to local tax, which it adds up to can put to more than 45% mark upon the legal cannabis products. And at least 2/3 of California local governments have banned all forms of marijuana businesses from their jurisdictions, and around 4/5 have banned retail dispensaries where the consumers could purchase the legal marijuana. So, this supply-side constraint have made legal marijuana difficult to access for many would-be legal consumers. But the more fundamental reasons for the strain of the black market in California, and one set the state apart from the others, is the huge surplus of pot. Of the roughly 14 million pounds of marijuana grown in California annually, but only a fraction, which is less than 20%, is consumed in California. Other than that, California's approach of taxing at multiple levels with high rate have further promoted black market activities while leaving the legal market flagging. Clearly, California's rough cumulative rate of 45% have been too high to divert the consumers away from the established black market supply chain. So, the differences between the legal marijuana and the illegal marijuana. Legal marijuana is typically with brand packagings, have to run lab tests to maintain quality control, have relatively higher cost of productions. For instance, California requires licensed marijuana businesses to have higher security, an alarm system, and a video surveillance. All of these operational courses legally make it difficult for them to compete on price with illegal marijuana. On the other hand, illegal marijuana is barely with any packagings, no license needed to obtain in order to run their businesses, so as a result, lower costs of production and quality control, but their quality of marijuana is not necessarily inferior. So, what is the black market problem California is currently facing? Despite legalizing the cannabis for all users in 2016, California is still have a thriving black market that includes the grower and the sellers. As much as 80% of the cannabis sold in California comes from the illegal black market. The research company estimate that the state illegal pot market is worth $3.7 billion, which is more than 4 times the size of legal market in the state. This is having a huge impact of aggregate sales within the state. According to the estimates, legal weed sales are expected to total $3.1 billion in 2019, which compared to $8.7 billion forecast for the black market. In other words, nearly 74 cents of every $1 being spent on marijuana in the state is avoiding taxation since it's in the illegal market.
Solutions to the black market problem. Here are some of the solutions. Black market businesses need an incentive to join legal markets, And without that incentive, the black market will continue to flourish. Next, there also needs to be an increase of accessibility of marijuana products across the state, because there are some cities that don't allow for dispensaries to open and or to sell marijuana products. So because of this kind of gives a rise to the black market, as well as that 24-hour accessibility from customers calling their local dealers. And now lastly, legal marijuana needs to lower their prices if they would like to compete with the black market products. Because sometimes these products aren't necessarily inferior to those of the dispensary, which will continue to incentivize individuals to buy illegal weed.
So, why should you care? Whether you are a cannabis user or not, I will cover the following reasons as to why you should care. The allocation of taxes collected actually goes towards good causes. For instance, the community reinvestment programs to fund communities most affected by drug policies, helping find people jobs and placing people into rehab centers when needed. Next, this tax money funds public universities of California to evaluate the effects of the measures passed. Following is the California Highway Patrol, who is creating and adopting methods to determine whether someone is driving under the influence, and yes, this does include cannabis. Lastly, a portion of this taxes collected will fund the University of California, San Diego to research the risks and benefits of medical cannabis. Next is the effect on California residents. Since legalizing marijuana, this new opportunity has stimulated jobs. These jobs include the cultivation of cannabis, packaging, distribution, dispensary workers, delivery people, and now even a cannabis cafe in LA. Lastly is the investment opportunity. Even though we stated that there are currently a lot more sales from the black market, the legal cannabis dispensaries are still in their first few years of positive growth in their respective industry. So it is still early enough to invest in the few public cannabis companies out there and be a part of the movement, at your own risk, of course. These are the reasons why you should care about the legal cannabis users being inelastic and want to encourage the demand of the dispensaries to increase.
Here are the key takeaways for today's presentation. There are different types of cannabis that is available and sold legally and illegally, and this includes indica, sativa, and hybrid. Legal marijuana is more expensive, and that's because of all the costs that go into selling the legal products. The quality control, the packaging, advertising, and even security that is necessary to be present outside. So the black market won't fully be eradicated because they also have more flexible prices and they are readily available 24 hours and they don't have to be taxed. Then legal marijuana needs to lower prices to constrict the black market. And this is a way for them to become more competitive. So legal weed is more inelastic versus illegal weed, which is more elastic. And the reason for this is that customers already buying legal weed have the willingness to spend on those products. So a slight shift won't really deter them. Whereas illegal weed is more elastic because the market is saturated and it's easy to switch dealers. And then lastly, the cannabis tax revenue did not match those projections that were expected because they assumed that there would be more dispensaries opened. And also there are many areas that also have restrictions and a lot of complexities that come with opening these dispensaries. Please refer to our references, and also thank you very much for listening to our project. If you guys have any comments and questions, please go ahead.
Smoke weed every day.